It's 2 a.m. A pump has failed. The backup pump is not exactly the same, but it's close enough. Production wants it running now. Someone says, "Just put it in. We'll do the paperwork tomorrow." That sentence is what today's episode is actually about, not the pump. That sentence, and how many plants have quietly said it, right before something went very wrong.
I'm Obaid Athar, and this is Process Safety Conversations. In episode 1, we talked about the accidents that shaped our safety rules. Today, we talk about the process that is supposed to stop the next accident from being written the same way. It's called the Management of Change, or also referred to as MOC. And for that, today's guest is someone I've wanted on the show for a while because his career fits this topic almost perfectly. Please welcome Sheraz Hussain Syed, HSE manager with 15 years of experience in the chemical sector, currently working in the GCC. He brings a rare mix of production and HSE experience, meaning he's sat on both sides of the MOC table. Sheraz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Obaid. It's a pleasure to be here. And I really appreciate this initiative that you've taken to educate young process safety engineers. And hopefully, I can add something useful to the conversation that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you for such kind words. So, Shiraz, for years, you were the one asking for changes and wanting them approved fast. Then you moved into the HSE and became the person who had to say, wait, let's review this first. We'll come back to that a lot today. But first, for anyone watching who has recently joined the industry or recently graduated, how would you explain him the sentence or the phrase management of change, or commonly referred to as MOC?
Okay, Obaid, for a layman, I would tell them this in a way that the management of change is a system that forces you to analyze risks. Whenever you are making any change, whether it's to the technology, whether it's a change to the equipment, whether it's a change to the facility, whether it's a change in the form of a new raw material that you introduce in the system, or even if you are adding or subtracting manpower to your shift, these changes can pose risks to your process. And it is very important to analyze these changes with respect to the risks that they pose, then identify the controls that you need to implement so that there is no risk remaining, and then go ahead with these changes. For example, in today's world, if I tell someone that a small piping modification can result in an incident that will kill around 28 people, injure 36 people, and result in a fire that takes more than 10 days to extinguish, some people might be skeptical. But this actually has happened. Yes, I'm talking about the Flix Pro incident in 1974. It resulted from a modification that was not properly assessed. So had the MOC program been followed, we might have been able to avoid that incident. So before any change, it is very important. If it's a small one, it's a big one, you need to stop and ask, does this change bring any risk to the system? And someone has checked it. That is the core of the MOC system. So it's all about evaluation of risks with respect to any change that we do to our system.
That's a very good way to put it. I'll just add one thing because I think it's the part people miss early in their career. MOC isn't really about the changes itself. It's about the gap that change creates. Your original design, your original HAZOP, your operating procedures, all of that was built around certain assumptions, right? The moment you change something, even something small, you might be quietly breaking one of those assumptions without realizing it.
I totally agree, Obaid. One of the things that we need to understand is that in today's process safety era and the chemical industry that we operate in, plants are evolving. There will always be changes. It can be due to any equipment failure. It can be due to an energy efficiency project. It can be due to capacity enhancement projects as well. So change is normal and sometimes inevitable. What matters truly is that the change is properly assessed by a competent team, it is reviewed by the forum, and the recommendations that we generate are closed out in the field. I always put more emphasis on it that we need to verify that the MOC recommendations are closed in the field. I also suggest to plant managers to always conduct an internal MOC audit because trust me when I say this, no MOC system is perfect. When you do a self-assessment or an analysis of your own system, you will always find problems with it. And that is a part of the continuous improvement process. You keep on getting better through the self-audits that you do.
Right. Absolutely correct. So, Shiraz, if I ask you, if you have to give young engineer a real example of a change, that looked completely harmless, but it wasn't. So, like, what are 2 to 3 examples that you would like to quote here?
But there are a number of examples that you can find on the internet. It's filled with the lesson learned from all around the industries. I have many of my own as well. For example, at one time there was a castic line on which a steam tracing was installed instead of an electrical tracing, but it did not serve the purpose. The steam tracing raised the temperature beyond what was required and it resulted in frequent leakages from the line. Similarly, a wrong metallurgy valve used on a specific surface resulted in a leakage. Apart from that, temporary repairs are something that are always into consideration whenever I go to a site for audits, because the crux of it is that it is temporary. It has to be addressed and a permanent solution has to be implemented. You cannot keep on a temporary repair with the provision that it will be extended several times. So for temporary repairs specifically, you should define a target date, sign it off and get it addressed by that.
Very valid point. And I also would like to highlight that I really want people to remember that MOC isn't only about steel and pipe work, right? To be clear, I don't mean your normal day to night shift handovers. That's routine operation, not MOC. I mean an actual change to how the plant is staffed, cutting the minimum crew size, changing the shift length, changing who's allowed to approve that. That kind of change can be just as dangerous as the change in the metallurgy or the process conditions. The real hazard was never the material, it's whether reality still matches with what the original design assumed. So, like you have clearly pointed out the changes in the operating things, the designs and everything, but this aspect is also very important, which we should look for whenever we are, operating any plant.
I completely agree. Manpower related changes are also very important. We have several incidents available on the internet in which lack of experience or improper training or replacement of one individual with another one was one of the contributing cause, because it's very important when you are substituting someone to maintain the competency index of the shift. So it's important that you train your employees. It's important that you ensure that they are equipped with the adequate knowledge and trainings to ensure that they run the plant safely and smoothly.
Perfect. So I guess now whoever is listening to this podcast would clearly be able to define what an MOC is, what are the critical aspects, and why it is so important to conduct this before having or before implementing any change at your plant site. So now, Shiraz, taking leverage of the experience that you possess, you have worked in production, you have worked in HSE as well. So how did you find the MOC process while you were in the production department and then you moved and you transitioned to the HSE side? So what actually changed for you once you moved and transitioned in these roles?
That's a very important question, Obaid, because I've been on both sides of the table. One of the things that I learned specifically after transitioning into HSE was that you have a tendency as an HSE advisor or an HSE manager to see the holistic picture. For example, you would like to go into the details of mechanical risks as well as those associated with a specific department, which you normally don't consider when you are working in the production or the operations department. So the recommendations that you give, the analysis that you do is entirely different. Operations is mainly concerned with the safe operation of the plant, smooth operation of the plant, but things like will this support be able to bear the load or not? Or does the ATEX equipment have a certain requirement which is being met or not? These are the kind of questions that you specifically ask when you are having a bigger picture of the risk. And this was one of the main distinguishing factors which I felt while transitioning from production to HSE.
Perfect. So like the holistic view of the entire process, now you totally understand it being in the HSE role. So I felt that from the other side too, where people look at you like you are being thought upon as standing between them and getting the plant back up because you want them to follow the procedures and everything. So very well put. So now, Shiraz, if we tell the audience like there is a system, MOC exists, people should follow that system and implement it 100% so that incidents do not happen. But let's like dive in the history and look at the incidents that actually occurred in the past because the system was not followed. Like for example, our post channel view Texas plant. Can you please walk us through it, like what actually happened and what was the reason behind that incident?
Where there are a number of incidents, like I mentioned, available on the internet regarding MOC and how it's a contributing cause for major incidents. Arcos Channel View plant in Texas is just one example. This incident happened in 1990, where a wastewater tank having the capacity of around 900,000 gallons exploded. It resulted in killing of 17 individuals and $100 million in damages. So basically what happened was that this wastewater tank had a nitrogen purge volume that was required. So the nitrogen was reduced because there was a maintenance job on the nitrogen compressor, and nobody could foresee that there would be decomposition of the peroxides and oxygen would be generated in a dead end. Although a temporary analyzer was installed, and the team was of the thought process that whenever we see that the oxygen level are high, we will increase the nitrogen flow. But because the oxygen generated was at a dead end, it could not be foreseen. So it was an improper review of the modification, primarily because the team never saw the risk of decomposition of peroxides in the wastewater tank and oxygen being generated there. And as soon as the compressor was started, flammable vapors were sucked in, and it resulted in a big explosion. So neither the MOC process was followed and neither the PSSR process was followed in this particular case. And there are many other incidents which teach us about the importance of MOC.
Correct. And there's another one I think about a lot. Bayer Crop Science Institute, West Virginia, 2008. A vessel that normally went through a scrubble was reconfigured for a startup test because it was labeled temporary. It skipped the review. A permanent change would have gone through. It exploded, and 2 people didn't go home.
I completely agree. And one of the things that I always tell people is to be very, very careful regarding the word temporary, because it can be abused in so many ways. Whenever we classify something as temporary, there is always a human tendency to ignore the risk associated with it. And it's similar to what I mentioned earlier with respect to temporary repairs as well. So it's human psyche because we often ignore the risk associated with it. Like I mentioned, if something is temporary, a target date should be defined, it should be addressed properly, and it should be done the right way. So there are no shortcuts in safety, like we all know.
Temporary is doing a lot of damage in that sentence. It's the same word behind Flixbro, which killed 28 people and which we covered in episode 1. I generally think temporary should be treated as a red flag word on a plant, not a green light.
I completely agree. Temporary repairs should be documented, should be communicated, should be available with all the plant managers. They should be aware of it, and temporary repairs should be reviewed more critically as compared to the normal modifications that we do on the site, because there is a risk associated with them.
True. So I guess the audience would link now that why this system, this management of change is so important, because this is not just a theoretical topic. Absence of this system or negligence in compliance with this system has resulted in serious incidents in history. If we search the internet, you'll find a lot of incidents that resulted because the review was not done properly. So to all those who are watching this episode and who have recently transitioned in any role in a process plant or in any plant, please review your modifications carefully, because you never know what assumptions were made in the initial design which you were running, and based on the changes that you are making, how you will hamper the process. So this is very important that you holistically review each and every change, no matter how minor it looks on the paper. So let's make this useful for everyone watching. 5 signs, countdown style, that a site's MOC looks fine on paper but is actually broken. I'll give you the sign and you tell me if it's real and what it looks like in practice. So starting the number 1 sign, nobody can tell you how many temporary MOCs are open right now.
You see, Ubaid, the temporary repairs, and I put a lot of focus on it earlier as well. We need to be careful about this. In good, mature organizations, there should be a log of temporary repairs. Ideally, it should be mentioned till what time it is valid, what is the inspection philosophy of this temporary repair that we are operating with, and in an ideal scenario, the extension should not be allowed. So you make the temporary repair as a permanent solution, or you shut down the plant and address the issue for once and for all. So temporary repairs, I would like to mention again, are a real problem which we need to look into, and we need to maintain them very, very carefully, because like I mentioned, they are temporary and they pose certain risks.
So that number should scare the plant manager, because that is a risk that the site is carrying. Perfect. So a review happens without the right person in the room. If one specific person is needed to speak on one point, they should be there. But often the review just goes ahead without them. And on top of that, the same 3 people approve every MOC, no matter what discipline the change touches.
I cannot lay more emphasis on this, that the review should be done by all relevant stakeholders. If a person is required for discussion for even 1 minute or 2 minutes, he should be in the room. He should be listening to whatever is the feedback of the forum, and he should log an action against his name and address the things properly. So proper review is probably the founding stone of a MOC program. If you are doing a review of MOC without the relevant stakeholders, without the people who actually matter, it is an ineffective MOC. And this is a problem that we've seen in many organizations. Like I mentioned, the highest member of the forum chair, should make sure that all the relevant people are available. They should spare their time, because essentially it is very important. If you pick up something right now and mark an action against, you might end up avoiding an incident which is very possible to happen in the future after the modification has been done.
Perfect. So I guess we lost the internet in between. So I'll just ask this question again, and then we can build on it. The second sign, review happens without the right person in the room. If one specific person is needed to speak on one point, they should be there. But often the review just goes ahead without them. And on top of that, the same three people approve every MOC, no matter what discipline the change touches. How would you review this?
I cannot lay more emphasis on this, Obaid, that we have to ensure a proper review for the MOC. And it is the responsibility of the forum chair to make sure that all the relevant stakeholders are present in that room while the MOC is being discussed. Even if someone is supposed to be there for 2 minutes and he should be asked on a certain question, he should be available. They should spare time, because this is the stage where we need to put more effort. If you give the right recommendation at this point of time, you might end up avoiding an incident which can happen later after the modification has been done. So reviews are very important. They should involve all the stakeholders. Every MOC review should be given its due time. It's as simple as this.
True. So the third sign, MOCs get rushed during a shutdown or a transient period, startups and shutdowns, when really they should be reviewed even more carefully, not less.
Sometimes it can be the case, and it varies from organization to organization, but you are right. There is a general tendency to rush things when we are in trouble, when we are in shutdowns, or when we are in a transient phase. And statistically, the possibility of an incident happening during the transient phase or during startups and shutdowns is more than it happening in normal operation of the plant. So we need to be very careful about the changes, specifically during these phases of the plant. They should be given their due time, and there should be no urgency. If you are confused about something, if you need feedback from someone, take a pause, take out some time, and get the things done the right way. Do not rush for MOCs. I completely agree with this.
I guess you have said something very important. Like, if you are confused, do not just rush onto the things. Take a pause, consult with your seniors, and then just go about the process. Don't take any decision based on urgency or based on emergency if you are not aware of what the consequences will be. Sports science, Shiraz, I guess this is really important. The pre-startup safety review, or PSSR, usually turns into a box-ticking exercise instead of a real final check before startup.
PSSR is again one of the most important points that I would lay emphasis on, because it's like the key which starts the car. So once you are done with the PSSR, there is no going back. It's the final checkpoint where you ensure that all the modifications are done in a safe manner, and it's also an opportunity to review the risk one last time. So I've seen many PSSRs, and probably the best way to do it is in field with the checklist in hand, going point by point, involving all the stakeholders, marking the actions, and then coming up with the before commissioning and the after commissioning points. And always remember that post completion of the before commissioning points, the facility should be commissioned. Sometimes there will be urgency, sometimes there will be pressure, but what's important is the safe commissioning of the facility, and it can only happen after a thorough PSSR exercise.
Yeah, that's worth sitting with for a second. PSSR is the last gate before that stops the change from being implemented at site, and it is really important. And it's your final checkpoint before a change system goes live. And I guess it deserves its own full conversation, and so we are going to go deep on it. Not today, but we'll dedicate an episode solely for the PSSR down the line. So the last sign, Shiraz, we have always done it this way, in an accepted answer to why wasn't this reviewed.
This is a common statement that we get sometimes, and I always say this: just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't. Because statistically, even if there is a possibility of something happening once in 10 years, that once can be tomorrow, next week, or maybe within this month. we are not sure about the incidents. So this is a very weak argument. It should always be rejected during the reviews, that we have always operated in this way. This has never happened. Because like I mentioned, just because it has not happened doesn't mean that it won't happen. There is always a possibility of an incident. And if you take a look at all the big incidents that have occurred in the process safety, maybe the mentality or the thought process was at that time also that this has never happened. And then eventually one day it did. And so many people got killed. And there was a big fire. And there were many people who were injured. So this is a very weak argument that we get sometimes, but I think it should be rejected.
Yeah, and when you give this concept down the line, then it shows that this critical step becomes optional, right? So if it's being wrongly done since the past 10 to 20 years, and we were lucky that there was no incident, it doesn't mean that you have mitigated the risk properly. And I guess that runs basically the whole episode in a sentence, that you need to be very careful. These changes, all these systems have been developed after certain learnings from the historical incidents in the past, and we should respect these. So, to end our conversation, Shiraz, we'll do a rapid fire round with you. Whatever comes in your mind, just say it. I'll give you a few sentences, and you can just say whatever comes to your mind. So, one phrase that should automatically trigger an MOC, no exceptions.
When somebody says, let's do it just once, then you should always be on an alarm level. You do not allow any change without MOC at your site, period. That is all.
Good. I really like this answer. So, hard expiry dates on temporary changes, yes or no?
Always must to have defined target dates with stewardship and a mechanism that makes sure that temporary repairs are addressed. Remember, they are temporary, so they need to be addressed. The thing needs to be fixed, and the plant needs to be operated in a safe manner.
Great. Loving your answers, Shiraz. So, one thing you would mandate industry-wide about MOC tomorrow?
Independent audit of your MOC. You can have a first party audit by yourself, a second party audit across different companies if you are working for a company that has different plants, and a third party audit even if you can afford it and if you are willing to go the extra mile, because audit of your MOC system will always reveal weaknesses. You can do benchmarking of your MOC system as well. With the world-class organization, it will always give you something to work upon, but continuous improvement should be adopted in MOC as well, which sometimes we lack in.
Okay, so last one. Advice for someone approving their first change request.
Attention to detail. Go into the detail as much as you can. Verify all the points independently. Start from zero. Take help from your seniors if you are not clear on something, and make sure that a thorough review is done for the MOC that you are going forward to execute, because this is the time at which you can highlight the risks, control them, and eventually mitigate them before the facility is commissioned and before the modification is done.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shiraz, for this. Genuinely, thank you from the bottom of my heart. The both sides of the desk view is what makes this episode different, because most people who defend the MOC process have never had to be annoyed by it first. So since you have worked in the production department in operations sector first, and then you transitioned into the HSC role, I guess you have explained the entire process in such a simplified way that, I mean, everyone who will listen to this podcast will definitely learn from it. So to everyone watching, especially if you are early in your career, MOC isn't the paperwork that slows you down. It's the conversation that's supposed to happen before a small, harmless looking change turns into the next flex pro. Go check your own site against the top 5 list. If even one sounds familiar, raise it tomorrow. Don't file it again. I am Obaid Athar. This has been Process Safety Conversation.